Welcome to Closer to Venus. I'm Johnny Burke, and today's guest is Mariko Frederick. She is a spiritual healer, founder of astral therapy, and author of Soul Priority, a true story of the soul's journey from death to rebirth. Today, we'll be talking about what she discovered during her near-death experience, including the 4 soul archetypes. Mariko, welcome to the program.
Hi, thanks for having me today.
So the book, Soul Priority, that draws from memories from the in-between space, I believe, where you had a life review. Was this the event that led you to your current path, or was it something else?
I think what led me to this path is having a near-death experience when I was 29. And really, the experience was beautiful, it was profound, it was blissful, but it was really almost a reminder to share my real story, which is that I stayed conscious between lifetimes. And so I remember everything between when we die and when we're reincarnated. And honestly, I thought everybody did. I thought it was totally normal. And so my death experience really woke me up to the fact that I need to share my story.
So your book, Soul Priority, draws from memories from the in-between space where you had a life review. Was this the event that led you to your current path, or was it something else?
I think what woke me up to do the work I'm doing today is that I did have a near-death experience when I was 29, but really that experience helped me to remember who I am and that I have to share my story. The bigger story really is that I stayed conscious between lifetimes. And so for me, my last life, the in-between, the life in between life, and like right now, is one long memory for me. It's not separate. And then the near death happened in this lifetime. Really, I feel like it was like a reminder, that opportunity to go back and remember who I am.
So you remember you were conscious in between lives. So you must have seen a lot. What I've heard from testimony from people who have experienced that space, I hear things like life reviews and soul agreements, soul contracts, soul family members. It's pretty intense. I mean, did you see any of that, or?
Yeah. I mean, you don't see it in the way that we see things with our human eyes. So as far as yes, there's a life review. I did my life review after my last life. And really, I think that was probably the most profound moment for me, was that I hadn't lived the assignment on my life. I wasn't doing everything I was supposed to do. I wasn't using my intuition. I was good at what I did. And this lifetime, I'm not great with dates, probably 500, 1,000 years ago. It was a very long time ago. Although I felt like I was a modern man on my, Manhattan skyrise apartment building, and I think back to the actual living quarters I was in, and it was a nice house, but it was a stone building with a dirt path, and the guy, with a cart, with a vegetable cart, going down the street. So it was a long time ago, very narrow streets. So that in that life review, I was always being called to use my intuition and work for my soul, and I never did, because I was really good at what I did. So I didn't want to change anything. And when I died, they showed me that what I was really here to do was to work for my soul, use my intuition, align what I was doing with my soul to help more people. And so when they showed that to me, and you feel it, they don't just show you. I mean, you embody it. You're like, oh my gosh, okay, great. I'll go do that. And they said, it's too late. You can't go back. You're dead and you'll never be that person again. And I'm just like, put me back in, coach. So that regret of you don't get to go back really, I think, has been with me my whole life, of wanting to help people on a deep level. And then when I had a near death in this life at 29 is when I really went, oh, crap, I got to share that story, don't I? And so, it took a long time for me to be able to do it, to be willing to do it, to heal, because I was really sick for a while. So, but yeah, now my book, Soul Priority, really is about all of that.
The life review, from what you told me before, it was almost like watching a movie, only from another person's point of view. Like, what was that like?
It was hard. It was blissful in a lot of ways too, because you get to see all the points, the moments in time where you were really aligned with your soul, where you're really doing what you're here to do and being kind and, affecting change in people's lives. And then you also got to see the moments where you weren't, where you were out of alignment with your soul, where you're definitely being an asshole, and you felt it. And the problem with that is that when they have this experience, when they put you through this, and it's funny because it's like, I'll say they, and yet I'll also tell you there is no one else because we're all one, but we have limited human language, so I'm just going to do my best. And so it's like God isn't judging you like I was judging me, right? My soul was like, well, let's just take a look at that. Like that, you didn't do so good. So in those moments, though, what happens is it's almost like you're you and you're experiencing yourself, right? So in my book, I go into how I was really being mean to one of my friends in kindergarten. And we're still friends today on Facebook.
They don't miss anything, do they?
No, they don't miss a moment. Like, this isn't like the time that you were really bad. This is like innocent stuff. But the thing is, I was doing it on purpose. I was kind of testing my energy, testing my power, and I was hurting my little friend on purpose. And I made her cry. And when I went back to the life review, I literally was like in her body as her, experiencing this moment, watching myself be mean to her, feeling how sad she was and how confused. And like, I thought we were friends. And why is she saying all this to me? Experiencing it as if I was her, and experiencing it as myself, and experiencing it as that divine creator with no judgment, all at the same time, all at once, because there is no time. Time's not linear. So you can be in 3 places at once and experience all of it. So, that was hard. And then I saw moments where I was really in the flow, maybe when I was working in the intensive care and caring for people, and you just get this profound shower of bliss and joy and love. Like, you couldn't even hold it in your human body, right? But when you're not in alignment, you also get that too.
Mm-hmm. Very consistent with what other people say about that space. You are made to feel what you made other people feel, good and bad. And the bad stuff is pretty hard to experience. But at the same time, it's almost as if something or someone is asking, how do you think you did?
Yeah.
And it was just like that. A thing that I hear really a lot is when they look at the big picture of that space where it's got many names, the healing space, home, and some people might even call it heaven. I'm not really sure because I've never been there, but it's also been described as the soul family members of your group. It's like literally planning the next incarnation is like casting a movie, like casting a play. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So I didn't experience it in the same way. For me, literally, I had this moment where I was with my spiritual teacher, and we're just standing, and there was so much bliss and so much excitement and joy. And I remember behind me was this little person who was, going to be my child and my husband. And it was like we were planning our incarnation. Do I remember the details of the plan right now? No, I'm living it out. But the excitement wasn't about the plan in that moment of, okay, you're going to go and you're going to go to Earth and you're going to, your name's going to be Mariko. Like, it wasn't that. It was actually that there was a celebration and excitement because I was actually going from the astral realm, which is what I call, or what the realm I was in is called, into what's called the causal realm, which is a realm higher than that. And that's a realm of thought. It's a realm of thought, really. It's thought energy. And that's where I was going next. And so there was almost like a celebration that I was going on to the next higher incarnation. And from there, I went into just pure bliss consciousness, God consciousness, oneness consciousness, whatever you want to call it. And then, boom, I was a baby again.
The oneness comes up almost like every time someone talks about this space, what they felt and everything. And I can't really get my head around it, but I hear it so many times. I'm assuming all these people are not making it up. Now, you just mentioned the causal realm. Is it like a higher vibration or a higher level? Like, what does it mean to us common people who have never experienced any of this?
Okay, so first of all, you common people have been there. You just might not remember, so you're not so common. So I'm going to say what I say to everybody: stop being so human. You are not common. What I will say is it's a realm of thought, and what I call thought waves. And so it's where we create. And it's where we're creating our reality right now, right? Thoughts create our reality to a large extent. If you're constantly thinking negative, you're going to have that outcome happen. You're using your causal body. So the causal realm I was in was not like the astral realm where it's bliss. And it's like, for me, it was a planet of light and nature and streams, rivers and mountains and just, again, I go into it in my book of just picking astral fruits off a tree and eating it and just living in this beautiful land of light, which is what I base my work off now, called astral therapy, where I actually travel and help people go there to basically decondition their beliefs and have that experience. So in the causal realm, it's a higher realm. So there's many realms, right? More than one dimension. And there's higher realms and there's lower realms. Earth, to my understanding, is like a C average planet. So the astral is a higher realm, the causal is higher than that. Then there's even higher realms. The highest realm that I didn't experience it, but I felt it, I would call it the inconceivable realm. Like I knew it was there and I couldn't have another thought about it. It was just like my human, even though I wasn't human, my highest, causal self was like, but I can't think more about it. So anyways, there are lower realms, and that's, where just lower vibration people go. And I don't want to say bad and good. We would consider them evil or bad, but they're just being themselves. It's like saying a snake is bad because snakes bite. Snake's just being a snake. So then there's the higher realms where the people, the souls there are more conscious. They have evolved.
They've evolved. And is it true that, I think I heard this from you, I'm not really sure, but is it true that the people in one realm that is in a higher place, the people from the lower realm are not allowed to hang out there? They can be conscious, they can be aware of it, but they can't go there. Is that true?
Not really. Not where I was anyways. In fact, I was able to travel to the higher realms, but I could only go for a short time and then I had to come back. But no, there's no like lower beings there. There was no like low entities or anyone. Everyone was, it's a lot of people from Earth go to the astral realm. So it's not like they're all perfect in bliss. It's like we go there, we have our shit, we have our issues. We've done things we're not proud of. We weren't always perfect, but like, that's your natural state. Like, it's sort of like, okay, but this is who you really are. So maybe you went to Earth and you had this roller coaster of a ride. Maybe you got into drugs or alcohol or got divorced or cheated on your spouse or made some mistakes. But like, in general, let's bring you back to who you are, right? And so you still go up to that higher realm. And then you realize who you were and you remember who you are.
But you still eventually go to the higher realm?
Yeah, you're not going to I think the lower realm people, the lower realm souls were like very low. They were very more on the evil side.
Murderers and psychopaths and sociopaths and things like that.
Yeah, and even worse than we can describe with our human words, honestly. And I knew it was there. You can kind of like, I'm not going to go there. You can't see it, but it's like you just know, but you're not there because my goal in the astral realm was really to go to the highest realms possible. And so I spent a lot of time in prayer, meditation, just trying to break through to that next level of higher consciousness.
Okay. That reminds me of a quote from your book, which I really liked. We are accountable for every single moment of our lives. So death is not something to be afraid of, but rather to be prepared for. If this is true, and this is one thing I've always been curious about, are the people that are cast in the bad guy roles that come down here to play a specific role, not just being an idiot for no good reason, are they exempt from feeling how their actions made other people feel, or did you not get that impression?
No, you do. It's just the way that we feel like they should be punished might not be what actually happens. And, it's interesting because we want to, well, depending on how you're raised, in general, for a long time, people have been taught about heaven and hell, right? And both are supposed to be eternal. So you go to heaven forever and you're good, or you go to hell forever because you're bad. But there is no linear time. There is no linear time. And everything, when you leave this world, you take your last breath, you are experiencing infinity. So yeah, if you're a total asshole, you're really a harmful, terrible person. Sorry, I hope I could just be mean.
That's fine. It's okay. Yeah, I like that we're laughing about this, but when you just mentioned, if you're good, you go to heaven forever. If you're bad, you go to hell forever and suffer for an eternity.
It's not how it really is because time's not linear. So it can't be. And yet, every moment after you leave this world, you're in infinity. So when you're in bliss, in that moment of bliss, you are experiencing infinite bliss. And when you're going through just like, shoot, what did I do? Right? Going through the life review and feeling the heaviness of maybe your mistakes. In that moment, it's infinite. Even if the moment's just like, a millisecond, you're experiencing it in infinity, which is the time that we don't experience here. So if you're playing the role of a bad person, yeah, you're still going to have your life review and experience who you were because you wanted that experience. You wanted to experience what is it like to be the villain. It doesn't mean that you might be a high conscious person who wanted to have that experience and then you did. And maybe that experience, wasn't bad. It feels bad to us humans, but maybe it was actually really activating and got people and a community moving in a way that we needed to. So the bigger picture is so different.
The reason I bring that up is because I had a guest not too long ago who told me that an ascended master came back down here to play her father, who was like very, very abusive, but it was for her to learn something. And I thought, okay, that's pretty big. An ascended master, not just some Uncle Fred or Uncle Harry that says, okay, yeah, I'll be the bad guy this time or next time around. But when you mentioned something about a spiritual teacher, do they give you some kind of inclination on the things that you need to work on and maybe consider learning when you're about to go into the next incarnation?
To be honest, all I experienced was such excitement and bliss because it wasn't communicated to me in like human words. And then I went on to the causal realm, which is a high conscious realm of thought. And it was from there that I came back. So I didn't have these, set instructions of this is what your life is going to be like. Really, the only thing I came back with that I really was imprinted with so deeply is that you can enlighten in one lifetime. I watched people do it. You can, and that really is the goal, is to become the highest conscious being you can become before you leave this world, which is what I talk about being prepared for. That's what to prepare. That's what you should be preparing for, is how many levels up can I go before I leave this world, right? And there was a oneness consciousness. So it wasn't me and my spiritual teacher, because there was just oneness at that point. So there was no separateness. But the only goal for people, for souls, humanity, is to continue up leveling your consciousness to the highest that you can before you leave. Like that's the only worthy thing, and however you do that, right? It can be through meditation, but it can be through your work. It can be through service. It can be through whatever that is. It's not one thing for everybody.
Now, speaking of the afterlife, your contention is that it takes place in the astral, but you also say that some souls don't go there while others bypass the astral altogether. So how exactly does that work?
Well, if you're continually up leveling your conscious here, you might not go to the astral realm, because the astral realm is it's where most humans go. You might just go straight to the causal, or you might go straight to oneness consciousness, or you might, be a serial killer and go into the lower realms, right? So, hopefully you're going up though. Anybody listening to this podcast is, obviously interested in the higher realms.
Yeah, great point, by the way. Now, when did you actually realize that the roles that you played here on Earth were an illusion?
As soon as I took my last breath. I took my last breath, again, this life, not like, because it feels like two near-death experiences, but the first one wasn't near. Like I did die and I stayed. You don't die, right? But I stayed. I didn't come back. I didn't come back for a long time. So, it's such a weird thing, near death. First of all, you're not really near death because there is no death. Second of all, they don't let you die if you're not meant to. So how near did you get to it? You know what I mean?
Right. Okay. Now, this is a really interesting one because I've heard this before. Apparently, every soul has its appointed time to transition out of life on this earth. Is there more than one point? Because I've heard there's actually 3. And you might skip the first 2, but the last one is not negotiable. I don't know how. I can't verify that one way or the other, but.
Well, here's my experience. The other ones felt like windows to me. And I didn't put that in my book because, quite frankly, the goal is to stay as long as you can, to continue up leveling, raising in consciousness. And you know, knowing people, having friends who have chosen to leave this world on their own merit early. I just didn't put that in my book. But I felt like there were other windows. They weren't doors. It wasn't like, yep, this is your time, you got to go. It was like a window that you could kind of like, go through, but it wasn't your ideal time.
Okay, but I've heard there's more than one window, put it that way. I've heard that before, and I thought that was pretty interesting. Now, you just hinted at people that left voluntarily, which it sounds like they took their own life, but you didn't want to put that in the book, but we can talk about it here.
Yeah, interesting. One of my friends who did commit suicide, she was very interested and asked me a lot of questions before. And this is, I thought one of the happiest people I knew, so I had no idea this was coming. And I just was so affected by it. I felt a responsibility, in knowing that mostly grownups would read this, but you never know, teens. And I just wanted the big message my big message in this world isn't to tell you that you have options, that you can come and go when you want. It's really live life to the absolute fullest you can. Live whatever is in your heart, that assignment on your soul. Raise your consciousness every day for as many days as you can possibly be here, because the work we can get done here, we can't do in the astral realm. The stuff that we're doing here is important. It's big, it's shifting, and we can't do all this when we leave. So I don't feel like it's my responsibility to help people stay as long as they can.
I've heard that too, that it's the work that we do here we can't do in the astral or anywhere else.
Anywhere else, yeah. There's more than one realm. That's just the realm I went to. There's people going to places, yeah.
There's several realms. Are there as many as 6 or 7?
Well, interesting, because everything's infinite, right? I experienced 7 realms in my human capacity that I could, right? But then there's also higher realms, different dimensions. And you can be in other dimensions. You can incarnate on other planets. We're not the only, place to incarnate here.
I should hope so.
I mean, technically the astral realm, I was incarnating there, right? And then the causal realm. But there's other very, material worlds, right? Because those worlds are light, but there's other worlds like this or different. But
one of your favorite reunions, this is in the in between live space, it wasn't with a person, but with an animal. What was that like?
Oh my gosh, it was sweet because there was just love. And it was actually my, who I believe became my cat in this life for a long time, and my horse in the life before that. And the energy of both of them was just so familiar. And it was just an animal I've been with for many lifetimes, I think. And it just, with the people that you reunite with, there's just bliss and love in the beginning. And there's also, maybe you're working out some stuff. Maybe I can say the people that are your enemy, the people that really give you a hard time in this life, when you leave, I felt nothing but gratitude. Like, thank you. Like, you stay over there and I'll be over here. We're not friends, but thank you. I respect you and I'm grateful for that experience. With the animals, it was just like, there's just love and purity, right? Because animals are just pure.
Really? Okay. Another thing that comes from your book is the less evolved souls may sleep for most, if not all, their time in the astral before reincarnating, while the more evolved souls can skip the period of sleep altogether. I've never heard that before, but it's pretty enlightening. So they can sleep. Are they resting or?
Yeah, I think I've heard it called the death sleep. And I slept for a while. I took a nap. It wasn't a huge sleep. Other people, I think they sleep the entire time. I slept, and then my spiritual teacher was there, kept checking on me like, yep, yet. I was like, no, because it's the most epic nap. I mean, the most blissful, epic nap. And I would sort of peek up and just like, oh, not yet. And when I did wake up, it was time to get to work. It was time to start evolving. It was time to start helping. I'm a healer in this life. I was a healer in the in-between space, and people would come, souls would come, and I would clear their energy and heal whatever they were going through. Because we can't, one of the things that we can do here when you mess up, when you just are living out of alignment with, your truth, your soul, whatever, we have karma. Right? We have that the soul does not have karma. This is kind of a huge topic. The soul is free of karma. But us humans, we act human. we screw up, we do something. It's karma is that action that kind of follows us, right? So then you have to deal with that. In this realm, you could do something to sort of pay off that karma a little bit, like sprain an ankle, catch the stomach flu, get sick, get to a little fender bender, whatever, right? In the astral realm, you don't have a body to go sprain an ankle to pay off the karma. So you just feel all the emotions of everything and you can't escape it. You have to work through it. So that's why I want people to stay as long as they can and just, be a good human being, try their best.
Also consistent with what I've heard about working off karma, coming to a place like Earth is probably the easiest way to do that. That makes any sense?
It is. And then I want to say you don't have to work it all off. There's no way you could work off lifetimes of karma. What happens is as you become more spiritually enlightened and you reach that level of just oneness, you don't have karma. The karma's gone. You are one. So it's not this perpetual punishment of you always have to pay it off because you're always going to, be human. But when your consciousness shifts.
Now, purifying, this is from your book as well. It's a future incarnation where you're purifying yourself through a series of hardships and lessons. Is hardship the only way to actually purify ourselves, or are there other ways?
I think there's other ways. That was in the causal realm. So that was the in-between space, the second. So I technically incarnated twice in that realm where there was no body. You're just a body of light. That was where I was calling in the higher teachings. I wanted the higher teachings. And I was screaming for it, not with a voice, but with my consciousness. And what came to me was a life review of every life I've ever had and experiencing all of them in a life review. And I did go through suffering and then came out just in the oneness of bliss consciousness with the divine. But I will say I chose it. I don't think everybody has to go through that. We're never punished. It's always a choice. You can evolve as fast or slow as you want. I think sometimes the people that want to evolve fast, we kind of go through a lot of stuff because we're like, bring it on, let's do this. And then we're like, I didn't mean to ask for that.
This is pretty interesting stuff. I mean, we're talking about the afterlife and the in-between life space, especially when you talk about soul-aligned choices and ego-driven choices. And isn't that the same thing as the difference between taking the high road and the low road because the low road is convenient?
Absolutely. I mean, the high road, it's not just the high road. It's like you feel it in your heart, like this is good. I got to do this. And it's not always easy, though, I'll say. The high road, the soul-aligned road isn't always the easy road, but it's the one that you're like, yep, this is what I have to do, even if it's like writing my book. Like, I didn't want to write this book. I dragged my feet on it. I didn't want to share this story. It was what I was meant to do and had to do. But, going back all those years ago, people weren't necessarily ready for this.
Here's a big one. This is also from your book. There is a God. Not the way some religions have taught, but God is real. Not a man sitting on a cloud waiting to judge us. So when did you actually discover that?
In the causal, past the causal, after the purification, after I went through every life review of everything I've ever been, animal, everything, I went into this blissful golden stream of light that was God consciousness. And you realize, like in that moment, I could literally expand out almost into another universe, into another dimension. And you realize you are the infinite universe, and the universe is love and loves you back. And every moment is not missed, even though it feels chaotic. And that is that God consciousness that we are all a part of. That is the oneness that we're a part of. We believe we're separate, so we act very human. But so it's like we are a unit of God's consciousness.
And speaking of oneness, another thing I hear a lot is separation, what you just alluded to. Separation is an illusion. You agree?
Yeah, absolutely. We're never separate. On our worst days, we're not separate, and nobody is. And that's why it's so hard as the world has gotten so intense and violent, because when you leave this world, you realize you're not separate from anybody. It just helps everybody to be as kind as you can. And it's hard because sometimes people don't deserve it. Like they're acting, terrible. And it's really hard to show kindness. But I think it's where you can just show patience or just walk away. depending on what's happening.
So, what are the four soul archetypes and how did you discover them?
So that is something I was given in the, like, I call it a download or an upload in my near death experience. I had this profound moment with these souls, these four souls, that it felt like they were like plugging into me and downloading me with some information, and so much, right? Not just information, but just bliss and joy. And again, human words kind of fail me to describe this moment with them. But at the end of this moment, I knew they had given me something special to share, and I couldn't access it. So it took about 17 years from that moment to be able to access it. And so for 17 years, I walked around knowing I had like an assignment on my soul, but I couldn't figure out what it was. I couldn't open it to figure out, well, what is this? What did they give me? How am I going to do what I know they want me to do? And then one day, August 19th at 9 a.m., it just opened. It was just like it was always there. And it took about 10 minutes to write down. And the archetypes are within us all the time. And for a long time, I didn't even have the word archetype. I was kind of referring to them as the four gifts of the soul. And yet I realized they're not gifts. It's not like you didn't have it before. It's not like a present, right? It's something that's a part of you. And I realized these are archetypes. These are part of who we are. And we have all four. And what they were giving me is a way to teach humanity how to work and earn money in alignment with their soul, so that they're not leaving their soul assignment. They're not leaving who they really are, at home and then going to work and trying to, get spiritual at yoga or church or whatever they do, but that you can actually bring that essence in your archetype to your workplace. And you are already. So when I talk about them and teach them, it's like, this is already, you've been doing this already. I'm just giving you the explanation, the language to now go even further.
So there's a way that you can fulfill your soul agreement or your soul contract. You call it an assignment.
I call it an assignment because, soul contracts can be toxic. And soul assignment is really like, what are you here to do? What do you want to do with your life? What is the highest potential that you have as the most ultimate soul aligned being that you are? What do you want to do with that? That's the soul assignment. Soul contracts are like, I make an agreement with somebody to like get through something here, but oftentimes they can be really hard. And your soul assignment isn't that. This is like the absolute best version of Johnny Burke. What can that be? What will you create with that? Right? And then obviously the goal is always to be raising your consciousness.
Okay. So there's a difference. That was one thing. It seems like it would be similar, but obviously it's not the case.
No, I don't feel like it is, because it's interesting. In some ways, it really is like, how can you be the best expression of yourself in this world, yourself as the soul? And what do you want to do with that? And on the other hand, the truth is the soul doesn't have to do anything, right? The soul is just being. So the soul isn't like, I got to get to work and do something. It's really just you, discovering and realizing who you are as the soul, and then saying, all right, this is who I really am, right? Coming into that self-realization. This is who I am. Now, what do I want to bring to humanity?
Okay. So do the archetypes, there's four of them, does that have anything to do with human design, or is that something different?
No, it's different. I'd say one of them is similar though, but no, it's so
Projectors,
easy.
reflectors, I think there's 4 or 5 of them.
There are, yeah. I love human design. It's fun. No, the soul archetypes are so simple. You do have the connector archetype. That's one of the soul archetypes. That's actually your moneymaker. That's the part of you that's like just has, contact lists full of people who need to be in touch with some. It's more complicated. I go into it in my book, but the connector archetype is the part of you, to really simplify it, that just feels called to earn money doing what your soul is here to do. And they're also really good at helping monetize other people's gifts. So they'll see somebody who's doing something and like, oh my God, I have a million ideas just came through of how you can monetize what you're doing. The connector archetype is always connecting people to the right people to get that big idea out, right? Or companies to the right people to get an even bigger idea out. And those are the connector archetypes who just love making those connections. They would never happen without them. The creator archetype, I absolutely love. I say in my book, it's probably the most important because the creator archetype is here currently to literally usher in and help us create something that isn't here. And if they're doing their job, if they're really aligned, they're not just creating, it's not just art, right? Art is important, but it's, and poetry and books, but it's also new tech. It's also new ideas. Yes, new books. They're literally receiving downloads to help us usher ourselves into a higher age of consciousness. So some people just have, like, they're very activated in that archetype. And you have all four of them. You always have, you always will. But generally, we're like very activated in one of them. So that's the creator archetype. And the funny thing about creator archetypes is they generally get bogged down because they're trying to do what other people are doing. And the truth is, creator archetypes, you have a constant flow of downloads of new ideas, and you're not here to do what other people are doing. You're here to literally do what everybody else can't do. They can't do it. So they're kind of the most important in a lot of ways right now. And they're also sort of the least supported, right? That starving artist, only it's like it expands to everybody who has new inventions, new tech. And we do need to be, helping those people out. And then there's the reflector archetype, which is the part of you who sees right into somebody's souls. You see their soul right away. You know exactly who they are. And you really can help them see who they are so that they can come and do what they're here to do. Really helpful for the connector and creator archetypes to see who they are. Reflector archetypes are often in jobs, medical, alternative medicine, healing, places where they just need to constantly be sort of being able to see into the soul of the next person. And then they also, the bummer about being the reflector, and I'm definitely a reflector, is sometimes we only see the soul and we don't see the human. And so we kind of get duped, and we get sometimes in toxic relationships, or friendships where we only see the absolute best version of this person, and we don't see that maybe they have some toxic behavior. So that's a quick summary of the reflector archetype. And then there's the expander archetype, which is so much fun. Expanders, you guys are here to literally help you see talent. That the expander archetypes see your potential. And they're the people who, like you, right? You're like, I got to get you on my podcast. I got to expand your voice. I can't help it. And the cool thing about expanders, they take somebody, whether they're working in PR or, marketing or whatever, but they take somebody and they want the world to see them, right? But the neat thing about expanders is they really also make the best leaders because they're very selfless. They're not doing this work and getting you on stage and getting your book out there, getting like whatever it is they do, getting you if you work in corporate or a job, they're not helping you get the promotion because they get something out of it. They do it because it's what they do. They love it. And they really make the best leaders, because if you think of a leader or your boss, you want your boss expanding you because it's what they love to do, not because they're going to get accolades or an award or a raise, right? So expander archetypes, they make the absolute best leaders, and they expand ideas. They expand you into the next version of yourself. And they're really just beautiful. So those are the four archetypes as I can squeeze into our podcast here. So, and I'm excited we actually got to get through that too.
No, you did a great job doing that. So to become aware of exactly which archetype we are, expander, reflector, connector, and creator. So out of the four archetypes, once that person identifies with that, then their journey becomes maybe a little bit easier.
I think so. Well, you want to use all of them all the time, right? And it's really about leaning in and going, okay, right now, you and I are using our reflector archetypes because we're talking on a high level of consciousness, and you are helping me with your expander archetype because you've got me on your podcast, right? It's just a matter of kind of almost owning, like, hey, wait a minute, I've got gifts. And maybe you just feel like at work you're writing the next email, but are you, or are you actually using your connector archetype to get things done, right? And it's just a beautiful way of looking at the world, I think, to align with your soul all day long at work.
We can use more than one archetype then.
All the time. There's just one that's very activated. There's one that it's like breathing for us. So for me, reflector archetype is always on. I just always see the truth of who everybody is. I always have. My connector archetype, I love helping people, scale or build their business and make money doing what they're here to do with their soul. I just see it. Like somebody comes to me and I'm like, oh, I see exactly where you're going to make money doing this and this. And I give them the strategy and off they go, right? So we're using all of them all the time. And I have a quiz on my website where you can just see which one is the most activated and just have a deeper understanding of each one. But you have all of them.
Wow. Okay. Anything else we should know about this?
I mean, they can be used on a high level of consciousness or a low level of consciousness, right? So a reflector can see the truth of who you are, but a reflector who's wounded or who's toxic, I could say, who's really not wounded, because the wounded reflector's actually not going to use their gift and they're not going to see who they are. But a reflector who's just more, damaged, wounded, toxic, they generally can see the truth of who you are and they twist it and then shove it down your throat and make you believe that's who you are. And they twist it into something lower. So very toxic traits. So each one also has sort of a lower vibration toxic trait. And it's hard because they're gifted. And that's where you come across somebody's archetype who is, not being used on a high level of energy, of consciousness. And you maybe have a conversation and you leave just like, oh, what happened? I feel terrible. But that person's kind of a high, it's tricky. It's like you think there may be a high level because you had this conversation. But at the end of it, they might take who you are, twist it, pull it down, shove it down your throat, and you're just like, oh, what happened? Right?
There's a lot to learn about the 4 archetypes because they can be used for a high vibration or a low vibration.
Yeah. But I think it's not so much learning as it is remembering. And that's why I love the download I got, these 4 soul archetypes, is it's not human design. I love human design, but it's very complicated. It's just like this wormhole of information. Whereas the soul archetypes they gave me, I think it's so simple. I think of it as like a personality test for the soul. So that you can go to work and just like be like, hey, I'm a connector, put me in PR, put me in sales. I'm going to make this company a bunch of money, right? Or I'm a creator archetype. Just leave me alone. Don't talk to me. And I'm going to create and come support me, right? Or I'm an expander archetype. Let me help everybody on stage. And expander archetypes, by the way, this is how I know they're wounded. They never step on stage. They always think that their job is to get everybody else to be the main attraction. And they never feel like they are. And they actually are. Because by opening up and expanding themselves, they actually open up a wider expansion for the rest of us. It's really beautiful.
It's like a Briggs-Meyer test for the soul, something like that.
Yeah, it is.
Mariko, thanks for joining us today. It was really, really interesting. And I wouldn't be surprised if we did have a part 2 at some point. In the meantime, how can our listeners find you online?
You can go to my website, soul, priority.com, and I have a free quiz. You can figure out which is your most activated archetype. You can find me at Mariko Frederick on social media.
All right. Excellent. I'll put the link in the show notes and the transcript as well. You've been watching Closer to Venus. I'm Johnny Burke. If you enjoyed today's episode, please consider subscribing. For more info, go to closertovenus.com. Thanks again for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.